Lady Jen, thanks for being here. Thanks to everybody else. I'm trying to do better about saying hi to people when I can. So if you don't know, I'm TC. This is MBRR Media, and this is Black Robe Regiment Media. Show, podcast, you name it. That's what we are. That's what we do here. And I know that for those of you that are Coop fans, Mama Coop is streaming right now as normal. ABA, thanks for being here. It is always good to be here. I want to throw a thank you out to my show producers, IMAP from over on Subscribestar, and then my anonymous. And Tav, the Angry Guts, done a massive amount of support, and to all of my channel members and to all of my subscribers, everybody who does come in and watch on a regular basis, thank you so much. I'm sure that I'm probably going to alienate a good 75% of you today. I'm never been known to pull punches, so I'm not going to pull punches today. It's who I am. It's what I do. I've been over doing a little bit more stuff over on Veteran Nation. Saturday, I did a Vet Nation Kitchen live stream with Mike, Skipper Arthur, and Georgie, and we made a deconstructed chicken cordon bleu and rustic wild rice pilaf, and it was great. The food turned out phenomenal, and I do that stuff there for the most part because it allows people to see me outside of my element here. So it's the same thing I do with my Substack. If you haven't read my Substack, please do. Please go over there. You will see a side of me that is me. Substack is me. It is who I am. Actually, to be honest with you, my Substack's probably even more me at the core than even my channel is, because my channel tends to focus on other people. It tends to focus on politics. It tends to focus on the Constitution. It tends to focus on other people's concerns and other people's run-ins with corruption. So, but my Substack is me. It is my philosophy of life. It's where I'm at. So please go over to check out my Substack. If you haven't, you can find me, TC of MBRR, over there. The link will be in the subscription, or in the description, as well as in the live chat if you want to follow it. I would strongly encourage you to do so, because you will get to know me much better. So we're going to talk about Iran, and we're going to talk about Israel, we're going to talk about Trump, and we're going to talk about the United States, and we're going to go as far back as the Eisenhower administration, because world affairs, politics, world politics, geopolitical events do not happen in a vacuum. They do not happen, should we say, outside of the context of everything that has come before it. So if you watch the news, the mainstream media, as I refer to them as the Mockingbird media, if you are not familiar with Operation Mockingbird, let me know. Maybe we'll do a drive time dialectic on Operation Mockingbird one of these days, so you guys can hear a little bit about that. But what we're dealing with right now, with Israel's unprovoked, unlawful attack on Iran, and Donald Trump's unlawful, unprovoked attack on Iran, is not happening in a vacuum. folks. I'm sorry, it's not happening in a vacuum. And if you listen to the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media, if you listen to the Trump administration, if you listen to people on the left are celebrating what's going on with Iran, people, neocons, normie-cons, blind Trump supporters, and if you voted for Trump, so did I. I voted for Trump in the last 2 elections he ran in. Folks, I voted for the man. I regret voting for him. I'm sorry that I voted for him, even with some of the good things that he has managed to pull off. I regret it because those good things do not outweigh the bad that he has done, especially when it comes to world events right now, world affairs, geopolitical affairs. But blind Trump bots are losing their minds in support of Donald Trump for taking out Iran, because they have been told for most of their lives, since late 1960s, early 70s, that Iran is, well, really not even that long. They've been told since 1979 that Iran is the problem, and they have all believed that Iran is the worst enemy the United States has ever had, and that nowhere. And so many people have grown up or matured or formed their philosophical opinions around Iran is bad. And don't get me wrong, I don't like the Islamic Republic of Iran. I am not a fan of Iran. I actually probably hold Iran in the same level of disgust as I have for geopolitical Zionist Israel. By the way, I think I saw Mercedes in here. Hello, Mercedes, thanks for being here. Everybody, please share this out on whatever social media platforms that you have. So I'm not an Iran apologist in the sense of I'm not into, wow, we should all be like Iran. Iran's got it all figured out. Everything's perfect. Everything's wonderful. But in this situation, Iran is not the problem. As the largest state in the Persian Gulf area, it is easy to look at Iran and say, man, look at all the power that they have. But folks, they really don't. They don't have a lot of power, and their attack, their retaliatory attack that took place just a few hours ago against the United States bases is exactly all the proof that we need to know that they are not as powerful as we're being told that they are. Now, if what you need to know about Iran can be summed up in domestic affairs, we can see that Laura Loomer, who is a massive Trump apologist, who is a massive Zionist, has a quote tweet out there, or a tweet, or I call it, Twix. She has a old message slamming Nikki Haley, the neocon Nikki Haley, for wanting to bomb Iran, while she is now in her highlights and in the spotlight of her support of Trump, is slamming anybody who doesn't want to bomb Iran right now. Ted Cruz sat down last week and got just eviscerated by Tucker Carlson. Everything that you need to know about Tucker, or about contemporary domestic affairs, is summed up in Trump's response to Tucker Carlson when he said, well, Tucker's a nobody, and if he wants people to hear him, he should get on a TV network somewhere. Outside of Joe Rogan, who is not a right-wing commentator, outside of Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson has the largest platform of commentary on world affairs and domestic affairs and international affairs, and is probably 50% of the reason why Donald Trump won the election in 2024. He gave massive amount of support. He interviewed Donald Trump when no one else would. He gave the keynote speech in support of Donald Trump at the Republican National Committee. And now Donald Trump has turned on Tucker Carlson because Tucker is asking some hard questions about why we're involving ourselves in Israel's unlawful preemptive attacks and war on Iran. That's all we need to talk about. You know, hey, Ozzy, Crosby, thanks for being here. I'm glad Harris lost too, because we would have been in war sooner with Iran than what we are now. But we would have still gone to war with Iran because all of the politicians, to include Trump, are sold out to AIPAC. And if you're not familiar with what AIPAC is, it's the American Israeli Political Action Committee. AIPAC owns the majority of politicians, and those that it can't own, it tries to destroy, like Thomas Massie. Donald Trump is now promising to spend as much money as it takes to unseat Thomas Massie. Why? Because Thomas Massie is demanding that Congress do its job and approve or not approve of Trump's actions in Iran. So now Trump has handpicked somebody to run against Thomas Massie in the primary and has already formed a political action committee headed up with some of his most loyal sycophants to take him out. So now we're done talking about domestic affairs in the sense of you could tell just how dangerous of a narcissist Donald Trump is, because if you don't support him 100%, you are the enemy. Now, let's get to the reality of Iran and the regime change that Donald Trump is now advocating for. Donald Trump's come out and said it's not politically correct to talk about regime change, but it might be time for regime change. After he said he wasn't looking for regime change, he's now saying it's time for regime change. Now, here we are, having a president talk about regime change. I want anybody who could think of a time in the history of the United States State Department, in our foreign relations, where we have actively advocated for regime change. And when I mean advocated, and people could say, well, regime change means we just support the people who want to change their regime. No. When a sitting United States president or any member of the United States federal government, the State Department, anything that falls in the purview of the State Department and Foreign Affairs, anytime somebody advocates for regime change, that means they're actively going to fund and put effort into regime change. And folks, the reason why we are in the position we are in with Iran is because the United States provoked this. We provoked this, and it didn't start in the 1970s, folks. We did not provoke in 1979 regime change. The regime change in 1979 that took out the Shah of Iran was provoked by the United States going as far back as 1953. Ozzy Crosby, you could say what you want about Gaddafi. He was an evil guy. He was an evil man. But you know what? Before we took out Gaddafi, do you know what we didn't have going on in Libya? We didn't have open slave markets like we have in Libya now. We provoked regime change in Libya. We paid ISIS. We funded ISIS. We gave money, tools, and equipment to ISIS. To ISIS. We gave money, tools, and equipment to ISIS in Libya to take over Libya. And now there's open slave markets. Open slave markets in Libya. Gaddafi didn't allow open slave markets. Gaddafi was not a radical Islamic terrorist. Gaddafi was a secular tyrant. Oh, I'm sorry, Ozzy. Well, you opened a door for me. But you cannot name a single time in the history of the United States that regime change by the U.S. has ever resulted in a positive. And you cannot name a single time in the history of the United States where we have been actively great. I'm glad they've agreed to a ceasefire. I'm glad they have. But none of this is going to go away until the American people wake up and realize that we caused this war. We caused this problem. The United States caused this problem, and here's why. We're going to go back. Now, we're going to get into it. Every single regime change the United States has ever taken part in has always backfired on us. We did it with Afghanistan. We tried to help the Afghanis to kick out the Soviet Union. And who did we end up fighting? We ended up fighting the Taliban, who were originally the Mujahideen, the freedom fighters who we funded and equipped and trained to fight the Soviet Union. Leading up to 1953, the Shah of Iran was a constitutional monarchy. So the royal family had power in cooperation with their parliamentary organization and the prime minister. Now, the prime minister was predominantly appointed by the Shah. The Shah of Iran was mostly responsible for appointing the prime ministers, who he of course would pick, who were on his side. Well, just prior to 1953, British Petroleum and the United States were the Brits and the United States were heavily involved in domestic and international affairs with Iran, because they inserted themselves into the Shah's sphere of influence. They became his advisors. And there was an agreement, basically it was British Petroleum and Iran went into an agreement where British Petroleum would export Iranian oil and then pay Iran for it. And I'm way oversimplifying it. Well, the West, the Brits, with the support of the U.S., were bilking the Iranian people. They were giving them pennies on the dollar for the oil. And as they were ripping off Iran, the Shah appoints, there again, through his popularity, appoints a new prime minister, Mossadegh, excuse me, it's hard to say his name sometimes. So Mossadegh becomes the prime minister of Iran just prior to 1953. And he's an incredibly popular prime minister. He's an Iranian nationalist. He is rabidly popular with the Iranian people. So he steps in, he kicks British Petroleum out of Iran and says, no, we're nationalizing the petroleum company so that you stop ripping us off and our money stays in our pockets and is here to better enrich our communities. Well, Great Britain, England, and the United States, Mossadegh, yeah. So Britain and the United States get together and say, we can't have this, and they plan and execute Operation Ajax. Operation Ajax. So Operation Ajax was a CIA United States front that went into Iran and began to drum up false accusations about the prime minister's allegiances and his popularity. Now, he was close to Russia. He was in communication with Russia. He was looking at Russia as the Soviet Union as a potential customer for their oil. Free market capitalism, folks. You go where the money is. The United States couldn't have that. The United States was not going to allow that. The United States was not going to let that happen. And they wanted their money. So they got together with the Shah, executed Operation Ajax, began to smear the premier and ruin his reputation, so that there was a popular uprising, regime change, because once he was appointed, the only way he could be removed, for lack of better terminology, was through a popular uprising. Now, the people loved what the Prime Minister was doing, because it was putting money in their pockets. It was keeping power and control in the national identity of the Iranians. Now, lest you freak out and say, well, he nationalized the petroleum company, who are we to say they shouldn't do that? Who are we as a country to say he can't do that? Lots of countries we're allied with have nationalized their corporations. More often than not, whether we like it or not, it's to protect those corporations from influence from the outside. No, it's not hail, it's just heavy rain. Enough for me to go around, folks. So as you notice, I have the vast majority of people in my chat are you mods, so nobody watches my stuff. That's you guys doing. That's not that you're nobodies, but I appreciate you. But you all have far more popular streams than I do. So they basically accused him of being a communist. They smeared him, ruined his reputation, said he was going to ruin Iran. It put the Shah back in full control. More and more radical. And all these pictures and stuff we see of all of these liberated women in Iran up until 1979, some of that's true, but it was really only for a small percentage of the population of Iran, because the Shah let his inner circle do whatever the hell they want to do, while he sent state police out to spy on anybody who might be a threat to him. So his tyranny and his authoritarianism rose up and rose up and rose up. And here's something that a lot of people don't know, and this is incredibly important. Iran and Israel were allies. They weren't close allies, but they were allies in the sense of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Israel and Iran worked together on many clandestine operations up until 1979. And the reason it ended in 1979 with the Iranian Islamic Revolution was because Israel was helping the Shah stay in power by giving him, and I'm way oversimplifying, by giving the Shah and his secret police and others information, tools, and tactics to control the people, helping him pinpoint who his enemies were. So keep this in mind. Prior to 1979, prior to the U.S. overthrowing the very popular Prime Minister in 1953, Israel was on excellent terms, very good terms with Iran, just like the United States was. So here we are, the U.S. doing what it always does, causes regime change through Operation Ajax in 1953, the Shah of Iran doing what every single ruler that the United States inserts into every situation does. They become more and more and more power hungry, become greedier and greedier and greedier. just like Ukraine, folks, we caused a regime change in Ukraine in 2014 under the Obama administration. Don't have to like that I'm telling you this, but it's the facts. They got greedy. They kept trying to kick, well, they actually were cleansing ethnic Russians from Ukraine, people who had lived there for their entire lives, and on and on and on. So in 1979, the Islamic Revolution takes place, the Ayatollahs take over, and they declare the United States and Israel enemy number one. Now, once again, keep in mind, at the beginning I said I am not a fan of Iran. I am not an apologist for Iran. But I want people to understand that the United States caused this. The United States went back 1953, didn't like the direction that Iran was heading, gaining its own liberty, its own freedom, its own economic decision-making process, and all of that, unsettled Iran, entrenched the Shah as the sole power, who then abuses his power, which then leads to the uprising of radical fundamentalist Shiite Islam in Iran. The same Shiite Islam that we see today. And everybody gets upset because they chant death to America. Well, folks, they haven't been chanting death to America for the entire existence of Iran. They have been chanting death to America since 1979 because the United States, prior to 1979, bullied and controlled them. And the Iranian Ayatollahs, the supreme religious leaders, see the United States' relationship with geopolitical Zionist Israel as one of the reasons why there are so many problems. And they're not wrong. Our relationship with geopolitical Zionist Israel has led to massive conflicts for the United States. It was geopolitical Zionist Israel that told us that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction in the second Gulf War. It was geopolitical Zionist Israel that said that Saddam Hussein was trying to assassinate George H.W. Bush, or George Bush number one. Sound familiar? Sound familiar at all? So, after Iran fell to the fundamentalist Shiite sect, the United States then did what? Helped Saddam Hussein make war on Iran. Why? Because they wanted to shut down Iran. They wanted to control Iran. They wanted the power to keep Iran a small bit player in world affairs and world politics, so they had to have an enemy to fight by proxy for the United States, and that was Iraq. We supplied Saddam Hussein and his Ba'athist secular party with their weapons, to include chemical weapons. We helped him pay for chemical weapons that he turned against Iranian civilian populations and against the Iranian military. We provided the support, the funding, the weaponry, everything you could think of. We helped Saddam Hussein fight the war against Iran, while we also supplied rockets to Iran in the Iran-Contra affair. Folks, you don't have to believe me. I can't make this shit up. I am not that smart. I am not a smart person by any stretch of the imagination. I am an absolute idiot in all of these things. And so if I can see this stuff, and if I can recognize these things, if I can point these things out, then anybody can see this. But for some reason, so many people just can't be bothered to understand these things. They just can't be bothered to know these things. So we begin the bullying of Iran in 1953. We lose control of Iran, which we can't have. They take over our embassies under Carter. And by the way, if you don't believe me, this is a fact as well. Reagan, working behind the scenes, makes an agreement with the Shah of Iran for him to hold on to the hostages, or not the Shah, with the Ayatollahs, and it wasn't even the Ayatollah who ordered the capturing of the American embassy, by the way. It was a radical uprising of the students, Islamic students in Iran. The Ayatollah just never did anything about it. He makes an agreement to keep those hostages in place until the election was won by Reagan. And then as soon as Reagan won the election, the Shah agreed to release them. Why? Because they wanted to unseat Carter, which I don't blame him. Carter is, he's a moderate by today's standard definition of, radical leftist progressivism, but he was definitely a leftist then. So then we make war on Iran through our proxy, Iraq. What happens? We end up having to fight a war against Iraq. Now, some of you aren't aware of this, but there are 7 countries in 5 years that the deep state wanted to remove and cause regime change in. Iran is the last one. There's a clip of Wesley Clark. If you go and you type it up, Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark, 7 countries, 5 years. Look it up. He will go through and he will give you a list of the countries that the deep state regime change people wanted to remove from the world scene. We've removed all of them except for Iran now. Any of this at all? Is it starting to register with you? Are you starting to see this? And all of those countries are enemies of geopolitical Zionist Israel. Every single one of them. Every single one of those countries is an avowed enemy. Israel calls them enemies. So the regime change that was announced prior to the start of the global war on terror, to Wesley Clark, the global war on terror had nothing to do with September 11th, 2001, folks. The global war on terror had nothing at all to do with taking out Al-Qaeda. Had nothing to do with taking down Osama bin Laden. It had everything to do with a clean break policy, basically. And you'd have to look into the clean break policy as well. The global war on terror had everything to do with taking down the countries that Israel wanted taken down. You don't have to like it. You don't have to believe me, but it's a fact. And so, here we sit. 6 of the 7 countries that they wanted to have taken out in 7 years have all been flipped. Regime change has happened. And as has proven out in every situation, every one of these countries has gone even further into the hole than what we could have ever possibly imagined. Oh, hey, Sarah, thanks for being here. Do you think they'll give Trump the Nobel Prize just to make it all look like it was the right thing to... Oh, I don't know. The world still hates Donald Trump for the wrong reasons. I have reasons that I don't like him, and my reasons are right. So I'm kind of cocky. I definitely think he's better than what Harris would have been. So here's where this is where it gets a little tricky. They want to take out Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli prime ministers have been telling us for over 30 years that Iran is just years, weeks, months, days away from having a nuclear weapon. Just always, just weeks away, just days away, just months away. They're always on the verge of having a nuclear weapon that they're going to use, and they're always they chant death to America, and they chant death to Israel, and on and on and on and on and on. Folks, I do not support violence. I do not support wars of aggression, and I do not support Iran taking out Israel. Israel exists. There's nothing we can do about it. They have a right to self-defense. Self-defense, however, does not include preemptive attacks. And here's how I'm gonna. And the United States is in on this. This is not that we shot down an Iranian airliner one time, accidentally shot down an Iranian airliner. Folks, we took part in a preemptive attack. And in that preemptive attack, we took out their nuclear facilities because we can't let them have nuclear weapons. But the United States has been bullying Iran since 1953. And I want you to imagine that you have, someone in your neighborhood. Let's just look at the world as a neighborhood. You have someone in your neighborhood who constantly comes over and lets their dog crap on your yard, who throws their trash in your yard, comes by, talks crap about you to your family, to your husband, to your wife, to your children, to your grandmother, to your friends as they're visiting. Basically, and then they escalate their bullying to try and get you to move out of the house. They want you out of the house. They don't care if everybody else stays, but they want you to move out of the house. And they're just doing these things constantly threatening. Constantly. And then they find out that one day you finally have had enough. You've had enough with the threats of violence. You've had enough with everything else. Nobody's coming to help you. Law enforcement says, hey, there's nothing we can do. Nothing at all can stop this. So then they find out that you went out and you bought some security cameras and a couple of handguns. And they decide, because you bought some security cameras and some handguns, that you are now a threat to them. And they're pretty convinced that you are going to march across the neighborhood, break into their house, or break into your house and take you down. The only problem is you've had security cameras for 15 years. You have a gun on every corner of your house, which, by the way, I think everybody should. You have a gun in every corner of your house, and you also have paid security who lives with you round the clock. They literally live there. You are never without paid security. And they're in the front yard all the time. In the backyard, they're in every entry point. But you hear that this guy who you've been bullying, or who's been bullying you, he hears, this guy who's been bullying you hears that you are getting ready to defend yourself and has decided that that's a threat. And he sends somebody over to your house to burn it down and take all of your guns away from you. Because you bought guns to defend yourself. That's what we've been doing to Iran. That's what we've been doing. Iran is not a good guy. Geopolitical Israel is the aggressor, and they are the bad guys. And quite frankly, having overthrown or caused a regime change in Iran in 1953, we caused the regime change in 1979. And now we are effectively promising regime change in Iran if Iran doesn't do what we want them to do. We caused this problem, this conflict with Iran. We did this. Not we, the people of the United States, in the sense that we're over there doing it, but the people that we put into power and have been repeatedly putting into power. Hello, Mike. Thanks for being here. The people that we have repeatedly put into power in the United States have been bullying Iran continuously since 1953, and probably before. And now we're taking part in bullying them on behalf of our geopolitical Zionist puppet masters like Benjamin Netanyahu. That's the truth. You don't have to like it, but it's the facts. If you go back and you listen to everything that I've said, you will not be able to refute anything that I'm saying. No, there hasn't been any peace in the Middle East. Ever. Here, I'll take that back. There has been peace in the Middle East. That peace ended in the build-up to 1948. We have to realize, we need to realize that Zionism is the disturber, not Jews. I have many Jewish friends. Who I love. I have a very good Jewish friend who I love dearly. Zionism is not Judaism. Thank you, Rat. Thanks for being here. Zionism and Judaism are not the same thing. And when Zionism arrived on the scene in the Middle East after the end of World War, and really it goes back even further than World War II, but it really, the Zionists originally tried to, I think it was like, they looked at Bolivia or Argentina. I'd have to go back and look it up again. They originally looked at some place in South or Central America to have a Jewish state. But when Zionism arrived on the scene, bullied its way into the Middle East, that's when the problems arose. Because they were bullies. They brought terrorism to the Middle East. What we know of as modern day terrorism today was brought to the Middle East by radical Zionists. And if you don't know the history of Zionism, a good chunk of Zionists at the time were directly out of the Bolshevik communist revolution that led to the Soviet Union. Period. End of discussion. You cannot disprove me on that. So, going back to the inception of Zionism into the forcing and the injection of Zionism into the Middle East, into the Palestinian region, that's when the peace failed. That's when the peace failed. And now, and I'm going to get ready to close with this, and now, with this unprovoked attack by Israel saying we're going to go take out their nuclear weapons because they're going to develop them, people have finally become aware. And if you haven't heard of this yet, folks, you don't need to just take, I want you to take everything that I have said here today. I want you to understand these things and start talking about them. Start asking these questions. Message me. You can message me on my Discord. You can message me on Facebook, Todd Pearson. You can message me, TC Pearson, on Twix, Twitter, at MBR or at Robe Regiment. You can find me there. You can comment in the comment section of this video after it's done. If you have questions, if you want to challenge me, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to have a debate on this, I will gladly debate you. But now people are finally aware of what is being called the Greater Israel Initiative. Israel is seizing land as we speak. They're holding land in Syria. They want portions of Lebanon. They want portions of Libya, that would also stretch into parts of Turkey and parts of Egypt and all the way over to Iran. They are wanting to form what they're calling the Greater Israel Project. They want more land. If you don't believe me, go to the Google machine, go to your chat GBT, whatever it is you want to use, and look up the Greater Israel Project or the Greater Israel Initiative. Israel wants to expand its borders, and the United States is doing what it's always done since Abraham Lincoln, and it's taking part in imperialism. Abraham Lincoln brought imperialistic presidency to the United States. Prior to Abraham Lincoln, literally just prior to Abraham Lincoln, we had John C. Calhoun. John C. Calhoun said, I don't agree with what the southern states are doing, but they have every natural right to do it. Lincoln stepped in and declared it unlawful and created the imperialistic presidency and centralized the power into the hands of the president, thereby making him king. And the United States has been an imperialistic country ever since then. And we are now engaging in imperialistic actions with our ally in the Middle East, geopolitical Zionist Israel. There will never be peace until the United States stops aiding and abetting the evil of the geopolitical Zionist Israeli government. Period. If Israel wants to do this shit, let Israel do it. No more weapons from the United States. No more billions of dollars from the United States. No more going out and starting a goddamn war and then expecting the United States to come in and shoot down all the incoming ballistic missiles. The cat, I agree with you in as much as the United States is NATO. The United States runs NATO. We are, like, there's just no way around it. We run NATO. Without the United States, there is no NATO. There will be no peace until the United States stops supporting Israel. And if you think that the Israeli government is an ally to the United States, you've got to go back and you have to look at the King David Hotel. You have to look at the Levant affair. There are dozens and dozens of situations where the Israelis attacked Americans, and worse. July of 1967, they tried to sink the USS Liberty and tried to kill everybody on board the USS Liberty to provoke the United States into joining the war against their Arab neighbors. So, folks, there's so much more to this than Israel good, Iran bad. America good, Iran bad. Iran's bad. Geopolitical Israel is evil. Hey, Hawk, good to see you. Stop giving me these bullshit excuses for pretending like Israel is somehow separate. I didn't give you any bullshit excuses. I would counter your argument and say that the Zionists are in control, not England, not the United States. The Zionists are in control because Mossad uses blackmail to get what they want. Period. Why do you think Epstein's list hasn't been released yet? Because Mossad controls it and they've got dirt on Donald Trump. Period. Zionists have the power. And they have ever since we gave the power over to them. We do whatever they want. If we would stop backing them, they would have to get along with their neighbors. But we keep backing them because they have dirt on so many of our politicians. And the guys that stand up to them, the guys like Thomas Massie, get attacked. Donald Trump wants to take Thomas Massie out. Because Thomas Massie said, no, enough's enough. This isn't right. If you attack Israel, as far as criticizing its practices, you get called an anti-Semite. They belittle you. Like, I don't have anything left for them to take from me. Like, the most they could do now is send a Mossad hit squad after me. Do I really think it controls the... Yes, absolutely I do, because geopolitical Zionist Israel is wealthier than the United States. Their income, their median income is massively higher than the median income of the United States. There's a reason why moderate and even Orthodox Jews won't go to Israel and live there. They don't want anything to do with it. And they have their tools all over the United States government. And we allow members of Congress to show up to the House of Representatives and the Senate in their IDF uniforms. Yeah, that has happened. We fly the Israeli flag in front of government buildings. We fly the Israeli flag inside of government offices. So folks, I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm going to go in, shower, and eat some dinner and have some downtime. But I felt like, you know, after the events of this weekend and today, this is incredibly I've said my piece. You don't have to like it, but I've said my piece. I'm not saying the United States isn't complicit. It is complicit. Absolutely is complicit. Because the politicians that are making the decisions and the State Department types that are making the decisions they're compromised. Donald Trump is compromised. State Department officials are compromised. They're owned by people like Miriam Adelson. That 40% of unemployment in Israel does not include full-blooded Israeli, as they say it, Jews. That 40% that 40% unemployment is the Palestinian types, the Arab types. But yeah, I'm gonna break this off here. I would challenge everybody who doubts my breakdown of the history of this to look into it and ask me questions, and I can help you by pointing you to a few sources. Once again, it's not the Jewish people that are a problem. It's Zionism that's a problem. Thanks for your opinion, Esk the Cat. I'm glad that you think that I'm superficial and I'm virtue signaling. Oh my gosh, you think I'm virtue signaling. That's awesome. If you had any idea who you were talking to about virtue signaling, you'd choke on your own tongue. That's hilarious. I'm a virtue signaler. Oh, that's great. Have a great time. I hope that I hope you come back around to see more of my virtue signaling. Ozzy, I hope you do. And Ozzy, I hope you actually do stick around. Because I love meeting new people, and you're always welcome here. I hope you guys will hit that thumbs up, share this out, ask questions. Israel does not make decisions. I gotta go before I lose it on this guy. Oh, this is awesome. Israel doesn't make decisions. Nope. Oh, I love you. Honestly, I hope you come back, Kat. I really do. Is it Eek the Cat or Ek the Cat? I don't know. I hope you come back. Ozzy, I hope you hit that subscribe button, and I hope you guys have a great night. And oh, oh boy. Anyway, my friends, okay. I didn't say there weren't any unemployed Jews. I just said it's predominantly predominantly the people who are oppressed by the Zionists. So, which includes Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Jews, and Palestinian Yazidis and whatnot, or Muslims, excuse me. But George, thanks for stopping in. Okay, I'm gonna go. Until next time, my friends. Sic Semper Tyrannis.